Alright guys, in this video we're going to start to add some content, a menu and so on, but I want to show you how we can compile our assets. So Laravel 5.4 uses something called Mix, and right here it says Laravel Mix provides a fluent API for defining Webpack build steps. So if we open up in the root here, webpack.mix.js, you'll see this code here. And what this is doing is it's looking at the resources folder and then assets.js, app.js, and it's going to compile that down to the public version, which is going to go in this public directory right here, okay, app.js. Okay, if we look at that, it looks absolutely horrible because it's compiled and minified. All right, same thing if we look at public app CSS, same thing. So we don't want to touch this stuff, app CSS or app.js in the public folder. What we can do is use the resources folder. If we go to assets.js, app.js, you can see this looks much nicer, and it actually uses Vue, which is a JavaScript front-end framework. And then if we look in the Sass folder, there's an app.scss. This is where we can add our custom CSS and then compile it down. Okay, now you don't have to use Sass. You could just use regular CSS files. If we go down here, plain CSS, what you could do is use mix.styles and then put your actual CSS files there, and it'll concatenate them together and then include it. Okay, but we're going to use Sass. So the first thing we need to do is just run an npm install. Now npm is Node Package Manager, so you need to have Node.js installed. I don't, so I'm going to install it now. Okay, so go to nodejs.org. We're going to grab the recommended version. I already did. So let's just, oops. I'm just going to go to my downloads folder. Okay, and then right here, Node. And we're just going to go through this. Very simple. Just click next, next, install. And this will install Node.js, which is a JavaScript runtime environment. Basically, it allows you to have JavaScript on the server, and then also npm, which is used to install packages. All right, so that's all set. Let's click finish, and then we should be able to use npm. So make sure you're in the basic website directory, and we're just going to say npm install. Oops. I think I have to restart this commander. All right, so I'm just going to navigate back to that location. htdocs, basic website. All right, let me make this bigger. So we're going to go ahead and run npm install. And that's going to set up all of the Node.js dependencies. All right, which could take a few minutes. Now, when we do this stuff in future projects, I'm not going to really go, fully explain it because I don't want to be repetitive. So I'll just kind of do it and you guys can follow along. And what this is doing right now, if we look at the package.json file here, it's setting up all of these dependencies. Okay, Axios, which is an HTTP client, it's going to actually set up Bootstrap Sass, so we can use Bootstrap without having to go and download it and all that. Cross environment, jQuery, which obviously is the JavaScript library. Laravel Mix, which we're using now to compile assets. Lodash, which is _JS, and then Vue, which is a front-end library or framework, whatever you want to call it. Okay, so it's setting up all that stuff right now. Now, when we, for instance, add something to app.scss to the Sass file, or we change something from the variables, we have to run npm run dev. Okay, and that will basically compile everything we do. Now, if you don't want to have to keep running that command, you can do npm run watch, and it'll just kind of sit there and wait for changes in the SAS files and then compile them down to the CSS. All right, and it's pretty cool. If we look at this variables file, we can easily change, for instance, the background of the body. These are all variables. We can change the color of the, the context, like primary, info, success, all that stuff. Fonts, the navbar background, and we can also add our own variables and use them in the app SCSS file. All right, so it's pretty cool. All right, guys, so that took quite a while, a few minutes at least, but it did a lot. So now what we can do is we can go into app.scss and we can add styles here. We could create another SAS file and just simply import it like they did with variables. And I think that's a good idea. So let's go ahead and say new file underscore, and we'll just call this custom.scss. All right, and then we can just simply import it. So we'll just copy that, and let's put this down at the bottom, and then we'll say custom and custom. You don't need to include the underscore. It knows that that is basically a partial that we're going to include or import. So let's save it, and we need to go to our index file, or I'm sorry, not our index file, but our layout, which is app.blade.php, and we need to link the public CSS. Okay, so we want this to go to css/app.css. Okay, it automatically knows to look in public, so if we go here, it's including this file, which is the CSS that's compiled from everything. Okay, Bootstrap, the variables file, the custom file we just created, it's all going to get compiled into this. So if we go back to our application and reload, you'll see that the style has changed. Okay, because it's implementing Bootstrap, because we're including it right here in the app.scss file, and also the variables and the custom. So if we go to, for instance, variables, and for the body background, just to test it out, let's put in black and save it. Now, right now it's not going to take effect because this needs to be compiled. So if we go back to our command line here and we say npm run dev, that's going to basically compile everything. Alright, so that compiled. Now if we go back to our site and reload, and it might take a couple seconds, you can see that the background is now black. Now if you don't want to have to keep doing that, you can just do npm run watch, and basically it's just going to watch for your updates. Okay, so now you can see it's watching, it's not going back to our prompt. So now let's change it back to what it was and then save, and it should automatically compile, okay, because we're watching for it. So my advice would be to just keep this running while you're in your development, and you can simply, edit your SAS files. So let's close that up. That's all we're going to need for now. Next thing I want to do is add a navbar. So let's go to getbootstrap.com, and we'll go to getting started and then examples, and I'm going to click on the starter template here and then do a Control U, and we can just grab this nav tag here. This is usually what I do instead of just typing it out. So we'll grab that, and let's go to our application, and I'm going to put this in its own include file. So in the inc folder, we'll say new file. We'll call this navbar.blade.php, and then just paste this in. Okay, we'll save, and then we want to include this in our layout. So let's go back to layouts, and we're going to put this right below the body tag, and we're going to say include navbar. Okay, let's go back What's this? Oh, I need to do inc.navbar because it's in the includes folder. And there we go. There's our navbar. Now the content is underneath it because we need to go and remove this navbar fixed top class right here. We'll just get rid of that. And then let's change the project name to, we'll just say Acme. And then home, which will go to slash. About will go to slash about. And contact will be slash contact. And for now, I'm going to get rid of the active class. All right, so if we reload, now you can see the content is out from underneath it. And we can also navigate to about and contact. So what I want to do now is put the sidebar where it's supposed to be. So we're going to use the Bootstrap grid system. So let's go back to the layout file. And what I'll do is, put in a div here. And this is going to be our row. And then we'll do call MD8, call LG8. So it's going to be an 8-column div. And then I'll copy that. That will be the main content, and then this will be the sidebar. This will be a 4-column div. So now what we need to do is just grab the content, put that in here, sidebar, we'll put that in here. All right, and let's see. I also want to wrap. Actually, no, that should be fine. What we do need to do is wrap this row in a container. So let's say div class equals container, and that's going to wrap everything. Alright, so let's save that. And now the sidebar is where it should be, and everything's inside of the container. Let's give the sidebar a well class to give it kind of a background and border. So let's go to our sidebar partial file here. And instead of the class of sidebar, I'm going to call it class of well. Reload, and now it's inside of a well. Okay. Now, if you want the appended content to go outside of that well, we can just move show down to here. And now it's outside of it. Okay. Alright, so that looks pretty good. Let's go ahead and add some content to the home page. So home.blade. I'm just going to go right into the H1. And let's put a paragraph. And then I'm going to type in lorem and then tab. And that's going to give me some sample content. So you can do this in Atom as well as Sublime Text. Okay, so that will just add some content here. And then for about, we can do the same thing. Change it up a little bit. Okay, it really doesn't matter what you put. Alright, so now we have home, about, good. So for a contact, we're going to want a form, and we're going to use something. We're going to use a package called Laravel. What is it? Laravel Collective. So we're not going to get into that just yet. Now, one thing I want to do before I go is I want to create the showcase area, or the Jumbotron. So let's go to the inc folder. I'm going to create a new file here, and we're going to call this showcase.blade.php. And then let's just put in a div, and this is going to have a class of Jumbotron and also text center. And in here we're going to have a container div. Okay, and inside here let's put an H1, and we'll just say welcome to our site. Oops. And then under that we'll have a paragraph, and I'm going to give that a class of lead, which will just make it a little bit bigger. And we'll say welcome to our brand new Laravel powered website. and we'll say this site uses Laravel version 5.4. Alright, and then we'll save that. So we need to include it in our app.blade.php just like we did with the nav bar. So let's see, where do I want to put it? Let's just put it right under the container here. Okay, and then we'll just change that to showcase. And there it is. Now, one thing we can do in Blade is we can add logic, okay, such as if statements. So what I'm going to do here is go to our, where do I want to go? Yeah, right here. And we want to wrap this include in an if. So we'll do @if, and we can use this request object. So request ; is, and we can test for the route. So we want to say if this is at / then include the showcase. Okay, then we'll do end if. So let's save that and reload, and still there. If we go to about, however, or contact, it's not there anymore. So we can specify what content we want on which page. And then I also just want to add a footer. So let's go in the layout file. We're going to go under the container div, and let's say footer, and I'm going to give this an ID of footer and also a class of text center. Alright, and in here we'll just put a paragraph that'll say copyright 2017, and we'll put the ampersand copy semicolon, which will give us that copyright symbol, and we'll just say Acme. Alright, now I want to add a little bit of styling to it, so I'm going to go to that custom CSS file we created, and here we'll say ID of footer, and I want to add a margin top of, let's say, 30 pixels, and let's see, padding, we'll say 20 pixels, color will be white, and background will be really dark gray. Okay, we'll save that, and since we have this watching, you can see it got compiled successfully. It even gives us a little notification down here, and if we reload, we get nothing. Why is that not changing? Let's see, footer. It should work. Oh, there we go. I did a Control F5 to clear the cache. Alright, so that's good. Now in the next video we're going to start to add the contact form, and we'll also start to get into some more dynamic stuff with controllers and models and all that.